Hey, thank you so much for watching this. This is Art from Woodward Sports MMA. Of course, a big fight over the weekend with the Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. One of the fights of the year, if you ask me. A fight that I definitely thought was going to end earlier than going the distance. I thought that it was going to go one of two ways. Either Brian Ortega was going to secure the choke, some type of submission hold, and really put on a show, or the Korean Zombie was just going to beat up Brian Ortega, similar to what Max Holloway did to Ortega. But that wasn't the case. Brian Ortega 2.0, bald Brian Ortega, the new lack of luscious locks Brian Ortega is back, and I gotta say, ring rust is not a thing for Brian Ortega. The way that he dominated the Korean Zombie was both spectacular and proof that, again, ring rust is not a thing for this fighter. He was out for almost 2 years. He had some injuries to deal with. Obviously, in the Max Holloway fight, he broke his hand early in the fight, which that could have definitely determined how that match led to, obviously, Holloway getting the victory on that. But COVID, it ruins everybody's plans, right? And it definitely ruined Ortega's plans, but he was back in action on Saturday night. If you want the full breakdown of the whole card, you could check out Ace's recap of UFC Fight Island 6 on our YouTube page. Make sure that you give us a like, a subscribe, a thumbs up, all that stuff, and check out the videos and the content that we have on there. But back to Brian Ortega. The man took almost 2 years off from the octagon. Now, you have to take that in consideration, how much that plays into ring rust. When you look at fighters such as Dominic Cruz, who gets injured all the time, he's one of my favorite fighters, but the man cannot walk straight without breaking an ankle or something. Ring rust is a problem. I mean, you saw what happened to him against Henry Cejudo. Cejudo put him away fairly easily. You could say an early stoppage, but that's for another video. But it is proof that ring rust is a real thing. Ronda Rousey, she took some time off, came back, got destroyed by Nunes. We haven't seen her since, okay? But when you look at Ortega, and you look at that fight in particular, a lot of MMA fans were like, well, he's going to get dominated. He's going to get picked apart. It's going to end early. I got to give credit to Ortega for actually holding back, letting the wave of the Korean Zombie come through and just really just let him outpunch himself. What was odd about that fight, though, if you watched it on Saturday night, was that it didn't look like the same Korean Zombie that we have seen before. I mean, the man was 16-5 before that fight, had a pretty dominant career. His WEC days were insane, but Ortega rode out the storm, just rode with the waves, and waited till rounds 3 and 5 to really put the pressure on him. And he didn't use his takedowns either, which was interesting. I thought that was amazing to see this new Ortega that actually had a team behind him, that didn't have a Rener Gracie with him, because Rener Gracie had tested positive for COVID, and just went in there, used his hands and his striking and his feet and, kicking skills wisely, kind of stood away from, using the takedown as like, I need to get this guy taken down, but used it as like a, hey, I will take you down and get too close, and you got the victory. With that being said, what happens to the featherweight division now? I mean, you look at, obviously, Volkanovski. He is the title holder. I think he's going to be the title holder for a long time, but then you look at Ortega 2.0, we got a new fighter on Volkanovski's hands that he's got to worry about. Max Holloway lost to Volkanovski twice. It was disappointing. I'm a big Blessed Era fan. I love Max Holloway, but here's what they need to do with the division. When I'm looking at the rankings, obviously Max Holloway needs to get another fight in before he automatically does a third fight with Volkanovski. It doesn't make sense. You've got Brian Ortega 2.0, bald Ortega, that needs to be thrown into the shot against Volkanovski. So that fight's set up. So where does that leave Max Holloway? Max Holloway has a number of challengers that he could go against, but why not put him up against the Korean Zombie? When you look at it, Max is technically the #1 contender in the featherweight division according to the UFC rankings. In my personal opinion, pardon my French, the UFC rankings are shit. They don't mean anything. You look at Conor McGregor, he was in the UFC rankings for forever, and the man waited for forever to fight. It makes no sense. So Max Holloway should be pushed down a little bit more, in my opinion. Now, Korean Zombie only went from 3 to 4, and the top 6 right now could be any good fights for Max Holloway. You've got Max Holloway at #1, Brian Ortega, Zambit, you've got Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, and Calvin Kattar. When you look at those matchups, I think, in my opinion, the best personal matchup for Max Holloway next is Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie shouldn't be, taken out to the pasture and just shot and forgotten about forever because he lost against a brand new fighter, basically, with Brian Ortega. So why not set up Max Holloway versus Max Holloway and Korean Zombie? They should fight each other. When you look further down the list, obviously Zambit and Yair are planning to fight, but that fight's been postponed, rescheduled so many times. I don't know the current update on it because it's been moved around so many times. That's a great fight. Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett. those two need to fight each other. I'm fairly certain Josh Emmett has a fight coming up before the end of the year, but that is a fight that needs to happen. That would be a huge challenge for Calvin Kattar. I think that he's next for title shot, participation to be a part of that, and I think that he deserves a shot at the title if he was to get a win over Josh Emmett. He completely destroyed Jeremy Stephens, and when you look at that top six, they're all killers, but Brian Ortega 100% deserves a shot against Volkanovski. When you look at how much he's changed as a fighter and grew over the past year and 10 months, because that's how long he was out, he needs the shot. Max Holloway set him up with Korean Zombie. Give Korean Zombie a little bit of time to recover and schedule that match for 2021. And then give Calvin a big fighter. We need to see what Calvin Kattar can do with those hands with a top 5 opponent. So there you go. That is my breakdown of the UFC featherweight division. Like I said, the UFC rankings are shit for the most part. It's basically a popularity contest, but with the featherweight division, I will give them credit. They do have some great things going on here. Coming up this week, we're going to do UFC 254 predictions. We'll have Ace's video on that. I'm going to also do a breakdown of the card. The only way that you can see it is if you go and like our page, of course, on Facebook, find us on YouTube, give us the likes, the shares, all that stuff. You can clearly tell I'm Italian because all I'm doing is using my hands. Big shout out to Adam for putting this all together and doing the technology stuff. I look like a karate warrior here. All right, have a great day, everyone. Art from Woodward Sports MMA. Peace and love to you.